Hello, my name is Daisy, and welcome back to my channel. Today I just finished my first tutorial for this channel. It is this beautiful sea landscape right here, and I am just so excited to share it with you and for you all to learn from it. As you paint, feel free to pause or rewind, rewatch, whatever you need. Everyone's painting pace is different, so just go at a pace that is comfortable for you. If you can, please like and subscribe to this channel. And also, if you did finish this tutorial, comment below on how it went for you. Is there anything that would have been helpful or other things that you would have liked to learn? Let me know in the comments below. So with that, grab your paintbrush and let's get started. For this painting, I used cadmium yellow, crimson red, ultramarine blue, deep green, cerulean blue, and then titanium white and burnt umber. For brushes, I mainly used a flat brush. I used the fan brush for a few waves, but you could definitely do this painting without this one. I used two smaller round brushes for the smaller strokes, and finally I used my detail brush for the little fine lines throughout the painting. You'll then need to grab something to paint on. I am using a 11 by 14 flat canvas, but you could use whatever you want and whatever size. And finally, you will need water and some kind of rag or towel to clean your brushes in. To start this piece, we are going to create a base layer of paint. So to start, I used cerulean blue and ultramarine blue and mixed it in with titanium white. You only need a little blue for this. And then I finally coated it at the top of the painting. Once we've finished coating with the blue mixture a little under halfway through the painting, we are going to add some crimson red into our blue and titanium white mix and start to make the line where the horizon is. And then as we do that, we're going to start blending it to the top by mixing it in with the blue mixture above. If you're having trouble getting your colors to blend with the coat of paint already on the canvas, try using some water on your brush to see if that helps blend the lines between the blue layer of paint with the added crimson layer. Once we finished with the under layer for the sky, we're going to return back to a mainly blue and white mixture and start to make an under layer of paint for the water. At this point, you should be looking at your canvas seeing only cotton candy colors, but we're going to change that now. We're going to add some burnt umber into our blue mixture, and on the last quarter of the canvas, we're going to do the underlayer for the sand. I liked mixing it into the blue because it keeps us from only using brown for the sand, and it gives it kind of a nice shading that matches our sky and sea. If you're wondering why I didn't do a straight line for the shore, it is because I'm already trying to mimic what waves look like coming in. Some of the water is higher in places, and at other points we're seeing waves getting ready to crash into the rocks. So I tried to keep it not straight in order to already help us with this underlayer in showing what an ocean shoreline looks like. Now that our base layer is complete, we are going to take a quick break and come back once our canvas is fully dry. Once that section is fully dry, I grabbed some crimson, some yellow, and started mixing that with white. We are beginning the sunrise part of our painting, so we're trying to make a color that is both bright, but also not too light toned. We want it to be a vibrant yellow with a hint of crimson red, making it just a little bit orange. If you keep watching, you'll see that I got the color wrong a couple of times, but I just kept making sure it was vibrant so that when I put it on the canvas, it was giving off a beautiful glow like a sunrise would. This is just the first layer of the sunrise. It's supposed to give that first initial color pop that we're going to be painting over, but will help with the rest of the colors blending into both the sky and the sun. Once I finished the initial outline, I switched brushes. I wanted to get more of the horizon, and which is easier to make with a smaller brush. But I added some crimson to make it a little bit more orange now. And then I finished outlining the horizon of the sunrise. I switched back to my bigger brush, and then I wanted to make a brighter layer around the sunrise we've already started. So I added some white into our orange mixture, and I started to blend it into the darker lines we've already created. I put some in the center, and then kept making an outer layer with that lighter color, outlining what we had already done. Once I was happy with that, I mixed some crimson and some yellow, and I just put some brush strokes directly under the center of the sunrise. And this was to add some contrast to what I was about to do. I took almost straight white. I put a little bit of the orange mixture into it, but I started to do the circle of the sun right in the center. The reason for doing the base color underneath was to add some contrast. I then took my orange mixture and started to mix it with some blue from like earlier, and this was to help start blending upwards into the sky we had done previously. The thing you want to be the most careful with here is not to overmix the yellow with the blue, because we do not want a green sky. A little bit of a green tone is okay, but not to the point where it stops looking like a sky and starts looking like a swamp. As I moved upwards, I kept adding a little bit more blue to my mixture to help blend it up. Every time I added more blue, it looked like the sky I had already painted, but kept me from adding too much blue from the start. At the very top, I started adding our ultramarine blue to give the top part of the sky the most contrast to the sun. Again, if you're having trouble blending here, add some water to your brush. My trick is to make sure I go fast enough so that the paint isn't dry yet, so it blends faster and easier. Once I finished that, I added just a little orange ring around the sun to give it more dimension, and then I blended it in with the sky. And then I finally took some white and I put it right in the center to really bring out the sun outline into the painting. Once I finished the sun, I returned to our crimson red and yellow mixture to make some peach orange and some brighter yellow. And I just created some downward strokes right underneath the sun going outward. And this is to create the ray effect of the sun that's going to be going through the clouds as after we do those. So downward strokes of our bright yellow and crimson red to create the ray effect. I also took the remaining of that color and again just did some outlining around the sun to blend it into the sky, creating a sort of ring effect around the brightness of the sun against the upper blueness of the sky. I moved my camera because I was getting a weird glare from the light above. But at this point, I decided that my sun was complete and I could move on to the clouds. I started with some crimson red and ultramarine blue and tried to create just a light purple that fit with our original cotton candy sky. I also added just a little bit of our burnt umber to mute it a little bit so it wasn't too purple. I mixed it in with some white to make it more of a lavender color. And then for the scary part, I started to put it over our sun. My main trick with clouds is to keep your brush strokes a little bit unpredictable and messy. Clouds are very far from perfect. So for this part, I just was very careful, but also kept my brush loose and did my first layer of our clouds throughout the whole sky. Another tip, if you watch carefully, you'll see that I'm constantly flipping my brush to find different edges of it. And again, I just think that this helps keep a messy cloud look for your sky. You'll want some lines, you'll want some more deeper dabs from your brush. Just keeping your brush moving constantly and loose in your hand is going to help tremendously with making your clouds look realistic. Once I was happy with my first layer of clouds, I started to add some more colors to our mixture. I started with some ultramarine blue and a little bit more of the burnt umber, and this just created a much darker purple than what we had been using. And I put this directly under the sun because when something is behind light, it is a lot darker. It's fully shadowed by the sun. So putting those directly under, I also added some yellow to it, I believe. But putting it directly under the sun adds a really beautiful contrast with the clouds. Then, just to blend that darker color with our lighter, I added some white to my brush, and I just went through and placed some lighter white purple wherever I felt like it needed to be blended in a little bit more between our other clouds. This also just adds the normal color we think of when we think of clouds, which is white. It really helps to remind people that this is a cloud. Then I just returned to our crimson, red, and yellow and just blended our rays into the clouds a little bit more. They were getting lost in the blending process of the clouds, so I wanted to make sure they still popped in the sky. I also added just a few brighter rays by adding more white to our yellow crimson mix. Then I just had some detail work for the clouds that I wanted to do. I started with putting a lighter cloud color over the rays just to tie the rays with the dark clouds and the sun all together. And then after that, I continued to blend outwards with that lighter color, helping the clouds keep their shading but still making them look a little bit more like clouds at this point. And then I added some more of all three of my main colors for clouds, the ultramarine blue, crimson, and burnt umber, and just added a few bits of dimension into the clouds, giving them some contrast and shading techniques throughout. Really, this was just me picking spots that felt like they were really bland and adding some interesting shadow elements to them, keeping in mind where the light was coming from and how far back they were from the immediate sun rays in the sky. I also added more ultra blue to continue some darker shading detail work right in front of the sun, which is where I wanted the darkest part to be. Then after I finished doing some darker contrast in the immediate sun, I also went and worked in the corners of both sides. I added a little bit too much blue at first, though. I took some back off and blended it back with my red. But I did want it to be the darker, the night, the twilight coming from the clouds. I wanted to show that in the corners of the painting. And then again, I kept blending with a lighter purple color, and I started to add some streaks of clouds towards the top a little bit more, and took my flat brush and a little bit of our cloud colors and started blending it up at the top of the painting to keep it blended with the sky. At this point, I was satisfied with my sky and my clouds, so I moved on to the sea. I started with adding cerulean blue and white, and I wasn't very careful I started to add some of the orange from before. I didn't wash my brush that well, but I think that helped keep the color palette similar in the tone of blue I was using. So yeah, you can see that there's definitely some leftover color from the sky as I mix it into the sea. But again, this just helped to carry over the tone of the sky into the sea part of our landscape. I started with making sure I had a crisp horizon with the water, and really just started to throw some paint where the water was and tried to mimic where color was in the sky and reflect it in the water. So I was putting some darker colors underneath the clouds, and eventually you'll see that I add some yellow and mix it into the area right below the sunrise. Right here I put in a little bit of green, and I wanted to put the green right where the waves were crashing on the shore, because if you look in the colors of waves, there's so much there, and that aqua color that came out with adding the little bit of green really started to make the ocean part of the water look alive. Similar to clouds, but in an even more dramatic way, the best way to make water look like water in my mind is just to keep your strokes big and unpredictable. I do tend with water to keep my brush going sideways more instead of going up and down like I did with the clouds, which kind of keeps the waves in line, but I did go up and down for the shoreline parts of the waves, which makes sense because waves do go up there. Here I started to add some yellow. I was trying to be really careful because, again, you don't want your sea to turn green. It's okay to have hints of green, but again, you don't want it to look like a swamp. So you have to be very delicate with any time you're adding a color like yellow to blue when it's supposed to stay blue. Once I finished putting in the yellow and white and orange into the sea, I added more of our original purple from our clouds and started doing it right on the horizon under the darkest parts of the clouds and tried to gently blend them into the yellow. I chose doing this with purple because it had less of a risk of turning green. But then I did want to add in some blue, so I took some of our ultramarine blue and burnt umber and put in some stripes of it over the yellow in the water. Doing it in stripes like that kept it from fully blending, which again keeps it from turning green, which is why I did that. And also it gives a really good far away wave effect. I put in some red into the purple and blended that into the sides. You really want to think of water as every single color you use in your painting, and typically that will have the best effects at the end. Water is so hard to paint because it is not one color, it is all of the colors, even the ones you would least expect. Before I moved on to the waves, I just did one more layer of burnt umber and ultramarine blue, making a very muddied over stroke over the colors we've already used. And then over that, I did one more of cerulean blue mixed with white to give it one more bright overcoat. When I returned to the waves, I added some green again because I wanted the waves to have the most green in them. Again, there's a fine line between too much green and not enough, but I was happy with how this turned out. I added some ultramarine blue, and I tried to keep my waves different. All waves have their own way of crashing on the floor. There's no two that are completely alike. I, again, similar to the beginning, tried to make sure that the shoreline was different. I blended it right at the bottom because that's where I want to see water on the shore. None of these waves have fully crashed in the picture. And then I started to add some highlights with some titanium white mixed into our blue-green that we've created. I then decided I wanted to do our sand really quick, so I added some ultramarine blue with burnt umber and white and just started to make nice messy strokes. I didn't fully blend the mixture in because I wanted to kind of naturally create some highlights in the sand as well as some darker spots as well, and this just really added that final glow to the painting that I needed in order to finish the waves. I started to add some streaks of burnt umber and then blended them with some titanium white. I also grabbed some of my ultramarine blue and did a few strokes of that into the sand. This was just to put in a little bit of contrast, but also we are on a beach. There's definitely water higher in the sand, so I wanted to add in some of that as dimension. We don't want just straight brown to represent the ground. So adding in some blue streaks definitely brought in some good contrast and dimension to the sand. A fun little detail that I did at the end was I took some burnt umber and mixed it in with some purple and crimson red and just did a little line of footprints on the shore. This was more just a sweet memory of mine. I just love making beautiful trails of footprints on sand. I think that there's something that's so dreamy about it. It makes me feel like I'm in a movie. So I just wanted to add that sweet little detail to this landscape painting that we are doing today. And yeah, so I just used my finest paintbrush and added those little strokes, and we have a beautiful little footprint trail along our shoreline. I then took my fan brush and started to add some little fan lines along the waves to create the crashing wave effect on our shore. You definitely don't need the fan brush in order to do this. I just thought it would be fun. I had just recently purchased this brush and wanted to get some use out of it today. I just kept them messy. You definitely could just use a fine brush or a round brush and do the same thing. Just keeping your brush strokes messy and lots of little jagged lines throughout it. Eventually I did switch to a round brush because I wanted to make it look a little bit more realistic. Right now I just felt like it looked like a fan brush on the canvas, but it was helpful. So if you're wanting to purchase one, they're definitely very fun to use. I added some white at the very base of all the waves to create the water on the shore effect, and then I took my detail brush and just added a little bit more to that, as well as a little bit more detail in the waves, trying to blend some of those strokes from the fan brush earlier. The little strokes on the shoreline give it such a good final effect of showing moving water, so I highly recommend not skipping that little detail. Even just a little stroke does wonders for that. To blend my white in a little bit, I added some more of our blue-green to the waves just to give them a little bit more contrast at the end after blending the white together. I was paying careful attention to how the waves were rolling as well as what direction they were rolling in. At first I hadn't really thought about that, and then I realized I needed to fix some of my waves because they were going in contrary directions. And then I just did some blending towards the bottom again and added a few more strokes for that shoreline effect. Whenever I finish a painting, I am always unhappy with something towards the end, and today it was the sky. I just decided to add one more shading of our clouds at the top in the corners, just to pull everything together. You obviously can skip this step if you don't feel like it or you're satisfied with the way your sky looks. This was just the thing that bothered me at the end, so I decided to spend a little extra time blending that into the sky. Of course, make sure that you sign your work. That is so important as an artist. And there you have it. That is our sea landscape painting. Thank you so much for joining me in this tutorial. Please comment below what you loved about it and how your experience went. If you can, please subscribe to this channel and like this video to support me as a small artist. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.